All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development, or AWD1111, Database-Driven Web Development course, I've been doing a series of video presentations that have most of all, have been based on the website of Flavio Copes, which is the Valley of Code that you see right here. So I went in to start with, I did a bunch of client-side web development stuff. So I did about 5 videos for the HTML handbook, about 10 for the CSS handbook, and 9 or 10 for the JavaScript handbook. I also sprinkled in there some of the earlier lectures that I'd done based off of the PowerPoint presentations in the AWD1000 or the Web Development Fundamentals course that had kind of an introduction to some JavaScript concepts. So now I'd like to change focus and start going over the Node.js handbook, and when I get done, the React handbook. And you'll notice this was just recently updated last month. All right. In fact, I've got the updated copy now. I do want to mention to you that I'm at my house. So as always, if you hear the grandfather clock, or if you hear my dog barking and my wife's got laundry going in the background, sorry about that ahead of time. So let's just get going. And to start with, so again, I've gone through the Valley of Code HTML handbook. It's all been done. I've gone through the Valley of Code CSS handbook. That's all been done. And I've gone through the Valley of Code JavaScript handbook. So that's been done. I also went in and did about 10 lectures from Brad Traversy's Web Dev Guide. All right. So now I'm in the next one, the Node.js handbook. And before I even do anything, I'm sure on here, so I'm going to go to Control Panel, and I've already got, when I go into my programs and features, I've already got Node on here. I'm sure I do. And there it is. It was back in April, and I've got 16.14.2. So I'm just going to uninstall it right away. Are you sure you want to uninstall it? Yes. Should take a matter of seconds, hopefully. And you'll notice as it works its way through here in just a second, right here where it says Node.js, it should be gone. And it's gone. All right. Well, then the next thing I'm going to do before I even start on this thing is, and I'm sure that this is in here as well, but I'm going to go out to NodeJS.org. And again, this is where you download Node. So it's right here. And of course, you don't need the HTTPS in front of it. So I just typed in nodejs.org, I hit enter, and there it is. You may or may not have remembered, but back in April when I downloaded this earlier, I had version 16.14.2. So we're still on the major release, but the minor stuff has changed since then. I'm going to recommend that you always use the LTS, which is the long-term support version, and not the latest features, because the latest features may have things in there that are neat, but they haven't been tried and true and totally tested. All right, so I'm going to come right here, and you can see it's downloading it. I'm going to right mouse click on it to say open when done. It may come back and it may beep at me telling me that I need administrator permissions in order to do that. I guess it's not even going to. So, all right, so welcome to the Node.js setup wizard. You just click next. You accept the license agreement. You click next. I would recommend putting it right in the default location. You click next again. This says basically load everything, and that's what you want. Click next again. And it says some need to be compiled from C, C# when installing if you want to be able to install such modules. Some tools need to be installed. I don't think it's going to hurt one way or the other, so fine. I'll click the check mark, click next, and it says, okay, let's do the install. And again, it's coming back. Now watch how fast this is. And we're done. All right. So don't worry about that or that. And I don't need anything here, so I'm not sure what that's doing, even, to be honest with you. Oh, it's bringing up the shell, so no problem. Okay, so we're starting. You'll notice this is 161 pages, so I'm sure not good enough that I can do that in one lecture, no matter how fast I talk. So we'll start by going over an introduction to Node. The history will be very brief. I don't think it really pays to do that. I've already gone through the install, so I don't know, how much of that we need. But we'll jump through this. You'll notice as we work our way through, there are 20, 30, 40, I think it's 49 different chapters in here. All right, so there's a lot of stuff to go over. Now, the first thing to realize when you look right here, as it says, Node.js is an open source and cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment. What does that mean? It's not a library. It is JavaScript, but it's meant basically to supplement or really add on to JavaScript. And what you are allowed to do when you use Node.js is you're able to run JavaScript on the server. As it says here, it uses the V8 JavaScript engine, which is the core of Google Chrome, outside of the browser. And when it says it's performant, it's fast. Now, some of this stuff in here, do you need to know it? The answer is no. It's interesting stuff, and it's not a bad idea for you to understand it. A Node app runs in a single process without creating a new thread. The key thing is that next sentence. It provides a set of asynchronous input-output primitives in its standard library. All right, so notice those primitives prevent JavaScript from blocking. All right, and as it says, the libraries, by and large, are written using non-blocking paradigms, which means, as far as it being performant, that if you write your code in a correct way, it should run quickly, and it should run very gracefully. When Node performs any I/O operations, rather than blocking the thread, it just keeps going on, and then it comes back when the stuff has been downloaded or whatever. This lets Node handle thousands of concurrent connections. There are a lot of sites, and you're going to see this, if not in here, someplace else during the course. There are literally thousands of very well-known sites that are using Node.js. All right. Node.js has a unique advantage because millions of front-end developers are now able to write server-side code in addition to Java client-side code. And again, what they're getting to with that is you're learning one language. Yeah, you're doing some things on the client side that you wouldn't do on the server side or vice versa, but it's all JavaScript. And that's one of the reasons that Node is already so popular, and it seems to be gaining more and more in popularity. There are other packages that could have been used. There's other ways this course could have been created, just so you know that. In Node.js, the new ECMA standards can be used without problems. All right. Node has a vast number of libraries. I think it's even more than this 500,000. All right, and we are going to take a look at NPM. In fact, I can click on here, and it'll bring me up to, well, okay, this is Flavio's Introduction to the Node Package Manager. All right, and it's a good read. I've looked at it. It's very short, just a couple pages or so. All right, but what we'll be interested in is going to NPM nodejs.org. So again, I'm giving you a couple URLs here. I've already given you that one, and that was for, our Node.js download. And now we're here, and that's going to be for the Node package. I'll just put MGR, manager. All right. So if we put that in and hit enter, again, this is the Node package manager. You can search for just about anything in here. All right. In addition, you shouldn't have to sign up. You shouldn't have to sign in. That you shouldn't have to do any of that stuff. But you come here typically to search for something. So let's assume for a second, one of the things we're going to be discussing shortly is going to be a package that's called Express. So you come in here and you type Express, and boom, it shows you all the matches. All right. Quite often, as we will in this case, you'll take the top one, but maybe not always. All right. So it says here an example Node.js application. So I'm going to copy all this, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to give you my take on it. And after I give you my take on it, all right, then I'm going to go back and see what the book here says about it. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a new folder, and we'll call it First Node because it's our first Node application. All right. And I'm going to come in there and I'm going to, let's see. I'm trying to open the folder up with code. There we have it. Good. All right. So let's come in there and let's add a new file. Now, one thing, and I'm sure the book won't agree with what I'm saying. I'm sure not everything and everyone will agree with what we're saying in here, but it is possible in the same Node application to have both client-side JavaScript and server-side JavaScript. So what I tend to do is I tend to call my server-side either I tend to call it either server.js or even more often app.js. So that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to hit enter, and there it is, and I'm going to paste that in. So let's go through every single line that's in here, everything. All right, I will run it. It's an actual runnable program. This program will create our own server. All right, so I'm going to put a comment in here. This program creates a simple Node.js server. Okay, so let's take it from the top. The first thing that you see in here is it says const HTTP equals require HTTP. Now, maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree, but that's a little confusing. So let's go and look in the wrong place for this. Why am I sending you out to a wrong place? I'm going to come in here and type in HTTP. And you'll notice it's got in here HTTP. Okay? Well, that's all fine and dandy, but I want to go back in here and I want to Google built-in Node libraries. Let's do it this way. Built-in Node.js. We'll put modules. And notice when we do this, we get pushed out to W3 schools. All right. But even better than that, common JS modules. All right. This is under the Node.js page. All right. How did we get here? Well, under Node.js, under the main page that we saw before, all right, somewhere up here, somewhere in here, there we go, API docs. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to click where it says API docs, and that gets us here. Now, I'm showing you this, and I'm not trying to confuse you. But when you look down here, oh, there's a few things. Yeah, but these things all have things inside of them. But if we look down here, there's HTTP. All right, and this is some of the stuff that you can do with HTTP. What I want you to understand is all the stuff that they show here. This is what you get when you downloaded Node right out of the box. So there's nothing special you have to add externally in order to get that stuff into your program. Why am I even telling you this? Well, if we go back and we look in here, this is built in. So I'm saying here, add the built-in NodeJS HTTP module. That's what we're doing there. All right. We are not going out to NPM and adding that HTTP thing. That is actually, I believe, at least something different. We are going and adding one of the built-in modules. And you might say, well, why do we use HTTP as opposed to HTTPS? We'll get into all that stuff. All right. But there's tons of stuff in here for the file system. There's tons of stuff in here for the operating system. There's stuff in here for working with the path. You know, and as you can see, there's just a lot of stuff in here, period. There's an about this documentation where you can look at that to take a look at what's through there and what's all in there. And there's other stuff as well. But all I'm trying to get across to you right now is, whoops, what we just said was we want to use that built-in module. All right, next. I will do it like this. All right, the next line that's in here. This host name, this is our machine. Your machine is always referenced as 127.0.0.1. That is the IP or Internet Protocol address of your machine. When I say your machine, it's the machine you're currently using. All right. So we're just basically what we're saying is rather than having to use that, we want to call it host name. You'll also notice that not always, but virtually always in here, when we create variables, we make them a const. All right. So what's next? This will become our default port number. Now, I don't like the way that they did this in here. We're going to use a different number. Why? Because eventually we're going to be getting into React. And by default, which means unless told otherwise, React uses port 3000 as its default port. So I'm just going to use 4000. All right, so that'll be our default port. And basically, it is port number 4000. Okay? We'll have more to say about ports a little bit later. So in here, and I wish they'd done a better job when they set this all up of tabbing, but they didn't. So here, we're going to create our server. All right. Now, I'm not expecting everything that's in here to make sense to you at this time. I'm just trying to show you some of this stuff. All right. So we're creating our own server that we're calling, suspiciously enough, server. And we're telling it to use that HTTP thing that we just brought in. And we're telling it to use the create server. So you will notice if I go back in here and I look under HTTP that there will be in here someplace a create server. There it is. That's what we're calling. we are telling it to create our own server in here. We are making an HTTP or a hypertext transfer protocol right here request to create a server. All right. Now, when we create this, there's two ways of doing this. We could have come in here and written function, and then we wouldn't put this in here. So we could have written it just like that. You'll see there's no error. That's considered the old school way of doing it. What I'm going to try to do as much as possible, if not 100% of the time, then doggone close to it, is to write it using arrow functions like this. This is the HTTP request. This is the HTTP response. Sometimes you actually see these being called request and response. You could technically call them anything, but either the word request or REQ, either the word response or RES are used virtually 100% of the time. So we are calling the create server, and we're passing in a request object and a response object. If everything worked, the response should return to us 200. You may or may not remember that, but we talked about that earlier. 200 means everything worked. All right, so unless it doesn't work, that's what it's going to return, is that 200. All right, then we're telling it that basically we're using just plain text. Okay, and you might say, well, who cares? You'll see there's other things you can put other than plain in there. And we're telling it to end by just saying hello world. That's it. That's literally everything that we're doing in here. That's creating the server. All right. Now, when we run this, if everything works okay and it works the way that it should say server running at, and it should have HTTP : / I don't know if it'll say the host name. This probably it'll say 127.0.0.1 and then colon and then our port number 4000. This right here, what I'm about to show you, this is very important. The console.log that you see in here, we're used to coming in here, bringing in a file, right mouse clicking, choose inspect, and finding console. It's not the same thing. That's not what we're going to be using here. All right. What we are going to be using with this console, and you'll see it in a moment, is when we come in here and we run this program. All right. We are going to run it from a terminal, which is a command line. You're going to see that in just a moment. This is the message that we should see at that command line. Now, that's the whole program, and I went through it quickly. I'm going to go and save this, and then I'm going to run it. All right, I've already got my terminal set up, and I'll show you later how to do this. But I'm going to do terminal, new terminal, and down here is my terminal. And I'm actually running this inside of Git Bash. So I can come in here and I can write in node, which is the name of this, and app.js, which is the name of our file. I can either write app.js and hit enter, and it'll work just fine, or it expects that it's a JS file, so I can just write app. So node app. I hit enter. Notice, there we go. Server running, that line that you see right here, this whole line, that is this line right here. Now, who cares? And what about this? What about this hello world? All right, what about that? If I want to get to actually see that hello world, I can grab this address here, just like that, and I can bring up a new window, and I can paste that in. HTTP : / 127.0.0.1 -4000 and hit enter. And lo and behold, there's our hello world. Now, if that's too much, you also can typically just put in here localhost colon and then your port number and hit enter, and you get the same thing. All right. Now, was that very grand? Was that very glorious, etc.? No. All right. Now I'm at 25 minutes, but rather than stopping right here, I'm going to jump back in over to here, and let's see what they say. To run this snippet, save it as a file called server.js. Well, I called mine app.js. It's just a naming thing. It doesn't matter. And then run node server.js. And like I said, with mine being app.js, you can either run node app.js or node app. I ran it inside of my terminal. And as it says, this code first includes the built-in NodeJS HTTP module. That's this line here. As they mentioned, Node has an amazing standard library. I already showed you that. All right, the create server method creates a new hypertext transfer protocol server and returns it. All right, these are just some of the variables that we need to use. This is what's creating the server right there. All right. The server is set to listen on the specified port. I changed it from 3000, which they used, to 4000. 3000 will still work, but I like to just look at it. 3000 is something special that we're going to be using once we get to the React portion of the class. When the server is ready, the callback function is run, and in this case, it informs us that the server is running. So this is an example of a callback function. So is this. This is a create server. Once it completes, it's going to call this stuff. This is the server's listen. When it completes, it calls this. Both of these are using the fat arrow or the arrow function concept. Here we have no parameters. Here we have 2 parameters. Whenever a new request is received, the request event is called, providing 2 objects, the request object and the response object. If you want more, you can click on those links. These 2 objects, as mentioned here, are essential to handle the HTTP hypertext transfer protocol call. The first provides request details. It's not used in this example. The second returns the data to the caller. We are using it to return a status code. We are using it to set the header. That's just letting the system know we're working with plain text. All right. And this closes it. Now, what if we wanted to? I'm just going to show you this because I'm done with this lecture. But before I jump in here to 1.3, I just want to show you one thing. This should work, what I'm about to show you, but heck, it's me, so there's a chance that it won't. But I'm going to come in here, and where do I want to get? Right here. I'm going to change this. All right, you see that it works, but I'm going to grab this line that's right here, these 2 lines, and I'm going to comment them both out. Let me copy them first, and now let me comment them both out. And I'm going to paste them right back in again. Why? Because I'm going to change this from text plain to text HTML. And this hello world, I'm going to put in H1 tags. All right. Now, why am I showing you this? What you saw before was this. Hello world. Okay. Now, I'm going to teach you tools so you don't have to do what I'm about to show you, but for now, we have to stop the server that's running. You stop it with a Control-C, and then we're going to start it again. Okay, it says it's running. Okay, big deal, right? Well, when we go back into here, watch what happens to this when I refresh. See that? It now, for lack of better words, it's an H1 tag. All right? So what I did was I changed our default text type from plain text to HTML. And I could add anything I wanted in there just to show you, because I'm finished, but just to show you very quickly as we're wrapping up this first lecture. So I've got this hello world, etc. And I could even add to that, okay, there's a \n plus, and let me come in here and just add, we'll add a paragraph. This is my first website. This is my first. Okay. Hope you like it. Okay, so let's see, what doesn't it like here? Oh, I didn't put this in double quotes. That's my fault. So, because I hit the plus sign there, that should be in double quotes, and so should this. There we go. So this is my first website. I hope you like it. Okay, now I'm going to save this again. So just do a file save. I'm going to stop the server. It may even work if I don't stop it, but I'm going to stop it anyway. I'm going to run the program again. I'm going to go back onto here and I'm going to refresh. Okay, so you can see what I've done. And this is so big because I've got it at more than 100% here. Let's see. There's 100%. I just want you to be able to see it. All right. That's it for the first part. That's a very gentle, believe it or not, introduction to what we're going to be talking about for the next several lectures. And that gets us up to section 1.3, Node.js frameworks and tools. All right, we're not even 10% of the way through here. All right, so I'll be back with the next lecture shortly.